Let's talk. Let's talk business.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Let's Talk Business with Mikel the Entrepreneur podcast. This is Mikel the Entrepreneur. I am really excited. This is the first episode that I'm bringing to you guys. So thank you guys for tuning in. We got a lot to jam pack in this podcast in this episode. But before we get into it, you guys get a little bit of a double whammy. First, I'm going to be just talking about what this podcast is about, who am I, introducing myself, and then we're going to get into the actual content. So there's going to be three things that we're going to be talking about in this podcast. The first one is going to be who am I? The next one's going to be what is this podcast about? And then number three is going to be how. So, how can you get involved? How can all these things happen? What the platform is and how often I'm planning on uploading podcasts and having them for you guys to be available to listen to. So first, let's just start with who am I? So those of you who have followed me and you actually found this podcast through my actual YouTube channel, YouTube is where I started. The reason why I started YouTube is because I really wanted to share resources with like-minded entrepreneurs just like me, because I know that when I started a business years ago, or when I was trying to start a business, or when I was trying to educate myself and learn more about a specific aspect of my business, I went straight to YouTube or I went to the internet, and oftentimes I found what I needed, but I didn't find it in the language or the presentation that I needed. Or I just had to find it in many different ways. Like I had to go to this person or to this resource for this thing, and then this person for something else. So that was the main reason why I wanted to be able to come in and give all those resources to someone, because oftentimes out there on social media platforms, people just tell you like, just start this business. This is how you do it. And they don't really give you the day-to-day resources or give you the day-to-day know-how or, the seasonal know-how. Like, hey, this is how you do your taxes. This is how you plan for your taxes. This is how you invest in equipment. This is, your assets versus your liabilities. This is how you actually, invest in your business the right way. This is how you take money from your personal and put it into your business rather than just spending your personal bank account to do these things. And like I said, the information was out there, but it wasn't the way that I needed it. So that's the reason why I started my YouTube channel. And I always knew that I wanted to do a podcast because I'm a podcaster myself. I don't know if that's the right term, but I listen to podcasts all the time. And whether it be for motivational speaking or, meditation, whatever it is, like I listen to podcasts because sometimes I'm not in a place where I can actually watch a video. So me listening to the audio is better for the circumstances that I'm in. So I knew that eventually I did want to start putting out content on a podcast platform. So that's why I'm here, because I still believe that the conversations and the things that we are doing can be shared on this platform. Now, let's go a little bit into the next thing. What this podcast is about. Ultimately, it's about being able to have real life conversations with real entrepreneurs. I'm asking them real questions, and you are gonna get real answers. So ideally, if you are inspiring to be an entrepreneur and you subscribe to this podcast, you are going to be getting information about someone that might be starting a business that you want to start, or you just might want to start a business. You just don't know how. You're in your 9-to-5 and you've always dreamt of starting a business. You just didn't know how to do that. So on this channel, I'm going to be bringing in entrepreneurs, asking them tough questions, asking them easy questions, just so that their answers and their experience can help guide you through your entrepreneurial journey. And then I'll also have additional conversations where we're just talking about business in general. So it could be stocks. It could be, hey, there might be a come up on, a stock, or there might be, a new way that you can move your assets around to make sure that, you're putting yourself in the best situation, in the future. So all those different things that I come across, I'm going to be sharing on this podcast alongside all of my other platforms as well. And then the last thing is going to be the how. And the goal for me for this podcast is I want to upload and put out content on a weekly basis, which I think I could do it for sure. I just didn't want to overreach and tell you guys, I'm going to give you guys podcasts every single day. That's not going to happen. There might be times where I am able to do that, and I'm definitely going to share with you guys as much as I can. But I know at minimum, you guys should be getting at least one episode a week, which I think is good. To where you guys can feel like there's always something out there for you guys to listen to. So the next thing we're going to be moving on to is today's topic. The reason why I chose this topic is because I think it's the foundation to someone starting a business and becoming an entrepreneur. And that question, that prompt is being poor a status or is it a mindset? And like I said, this is a question that I think every person should ask themselves on a given day. But I think that entrepreneurs and business people, they ask themselves this question before they even start a business, and they start to wrestle with this idea very soon in their entrepreneurial career, because they start to break through that mold. And what I'm going to do on this channel a lot is I'm going to obviously speak from my own personal perspective. And I think I'm entitled to that, right? You don't have to listen to this if you don't want to. But the goal, I'm not a closed-minded person. I think that I'm very progressive when it comes to hearing other people's thoughts and seeing and knowing that things are going to change eventually. And that, you know, the way that I think now might not be the way that I think in 5-10 years. Now there might be certain things that I stick with for a long period of time. But at the end of the day, like, I know that in order for me to adapt to the world that I'm living in, the businesses that I start, I gotta be able to adapt. So I'm saying that to say this, I'm also gonna be pulling in people that have different mindsets or different perspectives on some of the topics that I'm gonna be talking about. So the question is poor a status or is it a mindset? And I think it goes both ways. And this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give my opinion on, you know, how it goes from being a status, and then I'll give you guys the other side as well. But so this is what I feel like when it comes to it being a status. It's very true. You know, I feel like I grew up in a impoverished household. You know, at some time, you know, I didn't have a lot of money. There wasn't, you know, we didn't have money coming out of everywhere. My dad had assets and all these different things and cars, and I've never seen my parents drive a luxury car. I never lived in a home, you know, a house that my parents were financing or buying, you know. So those things that, you know, people that of money, they're exposed to, and the resources that they have, I didn't grow up with that. You know, I grew up lower than that. So even though I'm not knocking my parents, my dad did a very good job of, you know, supplying things for me. And, you know, there were times in my life where I didn't want for anything, but obviously, like, me not wanting something doesn't mean that, you know, I wasn't poor. I just think I was understanding the situation that I'm in. Like, I know I'm not going to be able to go and do these expensive activities because my parents don't have it. So what's the point of me even trying to say I want to do it? That kind of thing. So for the most part, people are born into that status, right? So your parents are poor, they give birth to you or your sisters, brothers or sisters, and then, you know, they're poor too. You are born into that status. Now, let me give you the other side. I also do think being poor is a mindset. And let me give you a little bit more about who I am. I started out my workforce career, like my W-2 career. The second job that I got straight out of high school was working for after-school programs. And through that, I was exposed to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I was exposed to that at, I think, the age of 19, right? So basically what Maslow's hierarchy of needs basically says is there are different stages in a person's wants. And then once all those wants or those needs are met, then, you know, you are reached the status of self-actualization. And self-actualization is basically like that feeling of I have it, you know, I'm there, I'm where I want to be, and, you know, I've accomplished, and I'm okay with who I am, and I've accomplished the things that I want to accomplish. I have self-esteem, you know, all my needs are met, you know, and very few people reach that. And to be honest with you, when you're looking at the pyramid, and if you guys want to see what this pyramid looks like, I will put it on my website. My website is mykeltheentrepreneur.com/resources. I'll put it on there, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so you guys can see what this looks like. But essentially, at the lowest part of the pyramid, it is all of your physical needs. And typically when you are poor, you know, most of those needs are met. And the one thing that we were taught when we were looking at this pyramid and thinking about this theory is, you know, that bottom layer is the needs, the basic needs of a human being, right? The basic needs of having to go to the bathroom, having food to eat, like all those different things, sleep. All those things are at the bottom of the pyramid. And typically, like, you don't have to have all of the things in order to have self-actualization, but it's good for someone to, like, those are good building blocks that someone should have. So we were taught when we were in that profession that it's really important for you to be aware of that and set your programs, because I was running programs at the time. You set your program up to where, so you know that those physical needs are met, and then you can, adapt your program and adapt your activities to actually help the students have, self-esteem and, to feel like the sense of loving and belonging, and all those different things that, the actual pyramid shows that someone needs in order to get to that self-actualization. So I understand, knowing that, having that background, and I'm hoping that me sharing that with you guys now can understand, like, that is a mindset or that affects your mindset, right? If you are in a situation where your physical needs aren't met, then you're not going to be able to think necessarily outside of those things. You're not going to think about self-esteem because you're so focused on, what am I going to eat today? What am I going to, where am I going to lay my head? If you're homeless, I've been homeless in all stages of my life. When I was a kid, when I was an adult, and then again when I was married. As my podcast develops, I'll share those stories with you guys. But it was hard for me. Like, I wasn't thinking about things like that. Yeah, like when I was a kid, it was like, these kids are gonna laugh at me if they see me walking or to my car and they know that I've been sleeping in my car. When I was an adult, I was thinking about like how I smelled, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm around these kids, and these kids, like, they kick it real. If they smell me or they see that I'm wearing the same jeans that I wore yesterday, they're gonna call me out. When I was married, it was, oh my gosh, like, how am I gonna feed my daughter? I need to make sure my wife takes a shower. I take a shower. Like, all these different things were going through my head, but I wasn't thinking about, oh, I'm in the best place that I can be right now. I was just thinking about my physical needs, because I didn't have those basic needs met, those physical needs that were met. So I think that they both play hand in hand, and I think, in my opinion, that the mindset can be altered. But I do think that in certain situations, like certain like physical things, when it comes to like you actually being a part of a status, right? Like you being poor, like you're born into a neighborhood, right? But it takes you and your mentality to actually get out of that. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in this podcast. But for the most part, like, it's really difficult for someone to actually, step outside of, what they've been doing and all they know. People always say you're a product of your environment, and that is true to an extent. I'm actually writing a book that says not a product of my environment for what I'm talking about right now. Like, many of you guys might be thinking, like, why are we talking about, being poor, mindset, all that stuff, when we're on an entrepreneur podcast? And I'm going to give you 3 reasons why I think that, and why I think it is relevant. Number 1, being an entrepreneur impacts all classes. So lower, middle, and upper class. I think that it's more impactful for the lower class, because they are going to see the biggest change in the life that they're going to live, because oftentimes they go into the middle class, or in some cases they go all the way up to the upper class. And the biggest thing with that, I think it ties a lot into the relevance of like the mindset over, the physical or the status. They overcome the most when it comes to becoming an entrepreneur, because the life that they live, the parents that raised them, they don't think like business people. They think like, employees. They think like W-2 workers, instead of thinking like, I'm a Schedule C, I'm a side hustler. Or they don't think like, hey, I'm actually, starting a corporation. So it's a huge difference between the mindset of someone that is, lower class to middle class and then to upper class. It's just a different way, and they overcome a lot when it comes to their mentality. The next thing is, I think it's important for entrepreneurs, and most entrepreneurs, they take responsibility for their past and present circumstances. They don't victimize themselves based off of kind of like what happened to them, in the past. They don't think about things like, oh, I can't. They don't blame other people. They don't say, hey, it's my job's fault why I'm not getting a raise. They also don't think like, my parents didn't get an education, so why should I? They think different. They think like, I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to put myself through these courses so that I can be better. I'm going to take these business classes because I feel like it's important for me to do that, because I want to give back to my family. I want to do these different things. And then the last reason why I feel like it's relevant, and it kind of goes into the last thing that I talk about, is they just take responsibility for, building generational wealth, not only for themselves, but for their family. It's really important to build that generational wealth. It's really important for you to think about your kids, and build on top of that. I am going to be sharing a story with you guys later in another podcast. It's called The Story of the Fisherman. And I kind of talk about that, just building that generational wealth and not thinking about kind of where you're at right now. If you guys have more you want to add to this, or you want to give some insight, please feel free to go onto my website. You guys can sign up for my email list, and you can drop me an email. You can talk to me there on my Instagram, my social media, all those different things. On my actual website, mykeltheentrepreneur.com, on that homepage, you'll see that there's a sign up. All you need to put is your name, your email address, and then you're a part of that community. So whenever I send out anything resource wise or something that I think you should know, I'm going to be sending it out through there. Also, if you are new to my channel and you are thinking about starting, managing, or growing your business, please consider subscribing to my channel. You can do that by hitting that subscribe button, also banging on that notification bell. I'll see you guys in the next one.